Hey everyone, and welcome. We're about to dive deep into one of the coolest parts of robotics, how machines actually make sense of the world around them. We're going to look at how everything from that little vacuum cleaner bumping around your house to the rovers exploring Mars can see, map, and navigate all on their own. So let's get into it.
I mean, you've got to wonder, right? How does it learn the layout of your living room, perfectly dodge the dog's water bowl, and then, like magic, find its way back to the charging dock? Well, it's not magic, but it is an incredible combination of sensing, smart mapping, and some seriously clever planning.
You know, before any mobile robot can do, well, anything useful, it has to answer two absolutely critical questions. I mean, every single thing it does, every move it makes, all boils down to solving these two fundamental problems.
And here they are. It's pretty simple, really. First, where am I? This is all about mapping the world and then figuring out its own position on that map. And the second big question is, okay, now how do I get over there? And that, my friends, is the challenge of motion planning. Once it knows where it is and where it wants to go, it's got to figure out the best way to do it. These two ideas, they are the absolute bedrock of robot autonomy.
So let's dig into that first question. How does a robot build a map? This is all about the robot creating its own internal version of reality, like a mental picture of a room it has never, ever seen before. So to pull this off, robots usually lean on one of two big strategies. The first is what we call landmark-based mapping. You can totally think of this like an old-school sailor using the stars to find their way. The other way is grid-based, which is kind of like playing a huge, high-tech game of battleship with the world. Okay, so with this landmark method, the robot isn't trying to sweat every little detail. No, instead, it's looking for unique, memorable features. You know, a doorway, a table leg, a weird-looking lamp. Those are its landmarks. And by figuring out where it is in relation to those key points, it basically just connects the dots to get the lay of the land. What you end up with is something called a topological map. And it's super efficient because it cares more about relationships like the kitchen connects to the hallway, which connects to the living room, instead of getting bogged down with the exact measurements of every single thing. It's a map of connections, not a perfect blueprint. Now, let's flip the script to that other method. The grid-based approach, also known as an occupancy grid map, is the total opposite. It literally lays a virtual piece of graph paper over the entire world and then starts analyzing it one tiny little square, or cell, at a time. And if we zoom in, you can see how it works. For every single one of these little squares, the robot's sensors are basically asking, what are the chances this spot is occupied? If it's pretty sure there's something there, it colors the square black. If it's probably empty, it's white. And if it hasn't scanned it yet, well, that's gray. That's the end. As the robot drives around and its sensors gather more and more data, it keeps updating the probability for every single square. And after a while, out of this kind of statistical fog, an incredibly detailed and accurate map just emerges. It's a really powerful way to build a very precise picture of the world from absolutely nothing. Okay, so mission accomplished. Our robot has a map, and it knows where it is on that map. So now we get to that second massive question. How does it actually get from point A to point B? This is where we enter the amazing world of motion planning. And right away, we hit a big problem. A robot isn't just a tiny dot on the map, right? It's a real thing. With a body, it has width and height. So as it's planning a path, it has to constantly be asking itself, hey, can I actually squeeze my big, bulky body through that narrow gap over there? The solution to this is, well, it's one of the most brilliant and elegant ideas in all of robotics. It's a clever mathematical hack called configuration space, or C-space for short. And what it does is transform this really complicated problem into something way, way easier to solve. Okay, check this out. Here's the magic trick. On the left, you've got the real world, the workspace, with the robot and all the obstacles. But on the right, in C-space, look what happened. We've essentially inflated all the obstacles by the size of the robot itself. And in exchange, we get to shrink the robot all the way down to a single point. Suddenly, planning a path for this big, clunky robot is as easy as just moving a single dot around. How cool is that? But you might be thinking, wait, what if the robot needs to turn? Well, C-space just adds another dimension. So you still have your X and Y for position, but now there's a third axis that represents every possible angle the robot could be facing. Yeah, the obstacles in C-space become these wild, twisted 3D shapes. But the job is exactly the same. Just find a path for a little point through this crazy maze. So, just to recap, where in C-space,
Our robot is just a point, and all the obstacles have been puffed up. The problem is simpler for sure, but we're not quite done. How does that little point actually find its way through everything? Well, it needs to build itself a kind of road network through all the safe, empty space.
And there are a couple popular ways to do this. Over on the left, you have something called a Voronoi diagram. This method creates paths that are designed to stay as far away from obstacles as possible. It is the ultimate cautious driver. Then on the right, you've got a probabilistic roadmap. This is totally different. It just scatters a bunch of random points in the empty space and tries to connect them, which creates this flexible web of pathways that's amazing for getting through really complex, cluttered areas.
So once this road network is built, there's just one last step. You have to search it. An algorithm called A** is the go-to choice for this. It intelligently zips through all the possible routes on that network to find the absolute most efficient path from start to finish. Honestly, it works a lot like your GPS app finding you the fastest way to get across town. All right, let's take a quick step back and just appreciate how these two massive ideas, mapping the world and planning a path, finally come together to create truly intelligent movement. This picture really does a great job of summing it all up. You take the map of the world, the workspace model, and you combine it with info about the robot's own shape. You feed both of those into the motion planner. That planner then does its C-space magic, runs a search algorithm, and what comes out the other side? A perfect, safe, collision-free path. So if you're going to remember one thing, let it be this simple three-step recipe. First, mapping creates the world. Second, C-space simplifies the robot down to a point. And third, the planner finds the path. It's just this beautiful, logical flow from seeing to thinking to doing.
And that really brings us right back to the beginning. These fundamental ideas are what let robots leave the lab and actually start working in our messy, complicated world. And as this tech gets better and better, as robots move from our living room floors to our city streets and even to the surface of other planets, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How is this ever-improving ability to see and navigate going to completely reshape our future? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.